This is the GWM Tank 500, a large feature-packed SUV with a sharp price, from the same people that gave you the Tank 300. But there's a weird thing going on. This car is not flying out of showrooms as quickly as I expected, and certainly not as quickly as its smaller-ish sibling. So, what's going on? Today, I'm going to find out exactly why this car isn't selling quite as quickly as I expected, and if those reasons are good enough reasons for you to not put one on your driveway.
To the end of May 2025, GWM had sold nearly 1,800 Tank 300s, whereas the 500 was struggling to move 600. And that's surprising given it shares a lot of what makes its Jeep impersonating stablemate so successful. It's off-road capable, huge, packed with equipment, has 7 seats, and on offer at a very attractive price. So why aren't more people buying a Tank 500 instead of a Toyota Land Cruiser, Prado, or Ford Everest?
For now, there are just 2 GWM Tank 500s available. The entry-level Luxe for about $66,000, or this is the Ultra for about $74,000. True to GWM form, there are no real options. Everything is included in the price except for premium paint, which will cost you $595. This, however, is not. This lovely shade of pearl white is included in the price. Both versions are powered by a 2-litre turbocharged hybridized petrol engine, which means no diesel.
GWM offers an unlimited kilometre 7-year warranty on the Tank 500, which is generous, along with roadside assistance for the same period. Cap price servicing is also offered for 7 years, ranging from $300 for the first visit to $990 for the most involved scheduled maintenance. Total cost over 7 years is $4,040.
How do you feel about the way the Tank 500 looks? I'm undecided. This car has already had a couple updates since it was introduced, but it's about to get another one, and that changes this grille. This is not it. It's not here just yet, but we're getting a much more Australian-centric, it's still chrome, but slightly less American-looking grille, which I think will probably help its cause. The other thing I want to talk about on the outside is because this is the Ultra, it gets these automatic side steps, which you might think is kind of cool, but actually in practice I found they're a bit of a pain. Because if you're trying to get into the car with it quite close, they actually, I don't need them, I'm tall. If you're a smaller person, you'd probably be grateful of them. So for the front seats, they're a little bit annoying, but they do actually come into their own, and I'll explain why a little bit later. Now, I think the main reason this car is not selling as well as it could lies under its huge bonnet. That engine is not a diesel, the kind of engine that Australians pretty much insist on under the bonnet of a large SUV. That is a 2-litre hybridized turbo petrol. But it does turn out to be quite efficient and powerful. GWM claims about 8.5 litres per 100 kilometres and 255 kilowatts with 650 newton meters, which is quite impressive. It's bolted to a 9-speed automatic transmission, and because this is the Ultra, it gets some serious off-road credentials in the form of 3 locking diffs, for example, and a proper transfer box. It's hard to believe that this car costs less than $75,000. The general impression I'm getting from the interior is one that's very high quality, but not too try-hard. Look at the quality of the materials. It's understated, but also high quality and quite classy. This material is supposed to look like a sort of, I don't know, like a section of bamboo or something. It's not real wood, but it has the impression of being high quality and looks pretty respectable. There's not too much high gloss, which I hate in cabins, especially ones with a lot of surface area. They end up being really reflective and horrid. And then even things like the Infinity sound system have these lovely laser cut covers on the speakers. There's also really nice quality upholstery up on top of the dashboard as well. And I think it's one of my favorite things, real French stitching, none of this fake stuff. Good quality leather steering wheel, nice upholstery, good fit and finish generally everywhere. Ergonomics also get a big tick. It doesn't feel quite as large as the car is on the outside once you're on the inside. That might not necessarily be a compliment, but certainly not from the front seats. I feel cozy. It's actually quite an immersive experience. I feel like I'm sort of sitting in the Tank 500 rather than on top of this huge SUV. And in that way, it reminds me a little bit of the Land Cruiser 300 series. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I'm just going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to say if you go into one of the development workshops in China for the Tank, I'd say there's probably a Prado or a Land Cruiser in pieces somewhere in those workshops. because I think there's a lot of stuff that has been looked at very closely by this company, and that is not necessarily a bad thing, because if you're going to copy anyone in the game, make sure you copy the best. The seats are very supportive and comfortable. They're covered in this really nice quality leather with a sort of strange organic quilting pattern on it, which works nicely. And then you've got all the comfort features as well. Heated steering wheel, heated seats with massage function and ventilation, a really nice quality sound system, electric adjustable everything, including the steering column. And then I also have a huge panoramic glass roof that extends all the way down for passengers in the second row. I am going to pick it up on one of my pet hates, and that is I don't have a climate control panel here. It's only one click to get into the actual HVAC system, but even so, when you're driving along and you just want to put the temperature down or up by a couple of degrees or hit the heated seats or steering wheel, I just want it there. I don't want to have to click one extra step to do it. Yes, you'll find the obligatory wireless device charging pad down here. That's becoming a real standard inclusion. In a lot of high-end vehicles, you get one of those in here. Space for one phone. It is also wirelessly connected for smartphones, both Android and Apple devices. Again, something that's becoming increasingly commonplace. Storage for a car of this size is at best average. That little spot there, which you can cover up, nice touch. You get a reasonable storage bin in here with a sliding tray that covers up your cup holders. Those you can get rid of if you want to, as you can the little tray. So it's a versatile and sort of flexible storage system. I also get a little storage tray under here where there's some charging USB-C and 12-volt sockets. It's good, it's versatile, you can do a lot with the storage, including the door pockets, but none of them are particularly massive, and the same goes for the glove box. So there's not a cavernous storage area that you might find in something like an SUV that's electrically powered, because then you don't have a transmission to deal with. So yeah, storage is average at best. Otherwise, I think first impressions are very good. The key thing for me is it matches the exterior. It's a little bit different and a little bit sort of confronting on the outside, and this interior is not going to be for everyone, but I think for a majority it works very nicely indeed. When it comes to the technology in the Tank 500, buckle up, get your popcorn ready, because there is so much to talk about. Let's start with some of the basic stuff that you'll find in the panel down here. You've got heated and ventilated seats up front, which when you hit the button once, only brings up one light. You might be used to heated seats having maybe 3 lights to tell you the level of heating that you've requested, and the same for ventilation. The reason you only get one light in this is because you head back into the HVAC screen, hit the seat icon, and then it becomes clear. You actually have 9 levels of heating and the same for ventilation. So you actually use this little sliding bar to pick up to 18 different levels of comfort in the seats, which is an enormous amount. We've also got, everything is virtual. You can go in here and change all the direction of the air ventilation coming into, and also the fan speed. You do have a fan speed switch down here, so that's the only thing in hard buttons. Everything else is in the virtual screen up here. Jump into this little 3 points here, and there's some more functions, including a fragrance dispenser, and it's very pleasant indeed. You can alter the aggression of the air conditioning system from gentle through standard to powerful, which is an unusual feature I've not seen before. Back to this panel down here, the only functions I've got down here are the front and rear window demist, which is good. That's something you really want, easy to get to quickly. The basic air conditioning system on and off that you do also need, and then the modes for where the air comes out of the vents. Other than that, it's all in there, which, as I say, I'm not a massive fan of. While we're in there, let's have a look. We also have native navigation. Excellent. It's perhaps not as good as as most people would, connect your phone to Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, but good to know you have a native navigation system. And then we start getting into some of the deep dive stuff. There's 2 home screens effectively. There's one which is a smartphone style tablet looking thing with all of your applications and icons in there. But then you also have a separate actual home screen. And I quite like that, because in a lot of cars you have either or. Whereas here, you've got all of your main things you might want to get to, entertainment system, your phone, navigation, all there in that one screen. It's not completely customizable. You can hold each tile and move it around so that they're better arranged, but you can't really do much more in the way of customization in there. That takes you to all the main car settings, which gives you access to seat memory, or as it puts it in here, memoria.
Don't know if that's something lost in translation, but we'll just call it Memoria 1. Lovely. That's where you turn on your driver's seat massage, and I have choices of wave, back, butterfly, serpentine, waist, single row, pulse, and my favourite, catwalk. No idea what that means, but those are the massage options. You've also got functions for head-up display. This car is equipped with a standard head-up display. It's full colour, it's very nice. One of the functions I really like in here, which is very topical at the moment because we're experiencing a bit of a cold snap, you can actually turn on a snow mode in the HUD, which changes the graphics from white to blue, so that if you're driving over a snow-covered road, you don't lose the graphics. That's a really nice touch that you might not know it actually had. Now then, this is cabin monitoring. This is one of the things I'm talking about. So you've got a driver monitoring system which looks after distraction monitoring, fatigue monitoring, even vital signs monitoring system. This can actually tell me if it thinks I'm having some kind of seizure or medical episode, which is a super cool feature, except it's a little bit too intrusive. This little guy here is the camera that's watching me all the time, and I think it's just, I don't know, it's a bit bored. It's trying to do too much. Literally, you give 2 seconds view away from the road and it'll shout at you. If you stop moving the steering wheel for about the same length of time, it'll shout at you. Here's where you can turn some of those things off, but in my experience, it seems like it's not ever completely off. It still can have a little go at you occasionally. Also got your wireless charging functions in there. One thing that I'm not going to be able to exploit completely in this car on this particular review, but I would like to come back to it and give it a proper off-road review, because this car pertains to have some actual off-road credentials. It's got a proper low-range transfer box. It's got lockable diffs ×3, center lock front and rear, which is, you know, you'd say that's a pretty decent statement of intent. But here's when it gets fun. We've got a proper off-road mode in the central touchscreen, and this is great. Look at all these features I've got to view the car under all those off-road situations. I can see which diffs are locked up. I can see the pitch and roll angle of the car. I've even got a compass in there. I've got the steering angle, tyre pressures, even atmospheric pressure and altitudes. There's loads of information in there for people who are genuine off-road enthusiasts. I just want to know if the car has the capability to really use that. I can go into the conquer perspective. In here, I've got a really good view of the car with all its cameras around it, 360-degree camera. It's actually a interactive camera, so I can move that virtual camera to see a particular angle of the car when I'm off-road. It's also equipped with what they call a clear chassis mode in here. Other vehicles have used a similar technology, which uses cameras outside the vehicle and a special algorithm to basically give you a view of what's underneath the car at any particular time. You activate that and suddenly the car disappears, and all you're left with is 4 ghostly wheels. If you can see there's a grey bit underneath the car at the moment, that's because I haven't moved. It needs the car to go forward a short distance, about a car's length, before it can gather the information and then give you an accurate view of what's underneath the car. We'll have a bit of a closer look at that later. You can also switch the view from a 3D to a 2D. You've also got individual cameras you can select with a little touch screen here. And that gives you access to intelligent parking, which is kind of self-parking. Again, not a unique system, but there's so much information in this. Now let's go back to our four-wheel drive screen, because there's one more thing I want to show you. You can go into expert mode. This gives you a little note which actually made me laugh. It says, after activating expert mode, certain custom mode combinations may not be affecting your driving control and comfort. If this happens, don't panic. You can click reset. Right, now we're in expert mode. You've got various different sub modes here. Customs, 3 options for creating your own custom mode. But what's this? In addition to that, a high-speed off-road racing mode. Can we just cut to an exterior look at the car again and remind ourselves this is a Tank 500, not some kind of Baja buggy. High-speed off-road racing mode. And then below that, it gets even better, a drift mode. Are you serious? Switch to drift. Okay. There we go, I'm now in drift mode. I've got some kind of, I didn't realise it was like an S14 with 700 horsepower. Basically what that does is alter to preset settings the various aspects you can, so four drive mode, steering mode and ESC settings. You can do that yourself, but I just find it hilarious that this car, a reasonably priced 7-seat family SUV, has a high-speed off-road racing mode and a drift mode. If you want to use just the standard driving modes, you can start in normal, and this really handy easy gauge dial down here will scroll you through them through sport, eco mode, snow mode, particularly topical at the moment, mud and sand, also a four-wheel drive high mode. So there's tons of different driver mode settings. They're customizable or not. There is so much stuff to get through in this vehicle. It just goes on and on. It's a really interesting blend and mix of technology and traditional mechanicals, and I kind of like it about this car. There are a couple other ways you can customize the interior of the Tank 500. Ambient lighting, it has multicolor ambient lighting. You can go and change your own theme in here to select how you're feeling, or the weather makes you feel, for example. Particularly like this little starry sky screen in the dashboard on the passenger side. Also, I can adjust the look of the driver's instrument cluster as well. Go into the personalization screen, hit driver's screen, and now I've got three choices. I'm in the guide mode at the moment, which has the navigation map embedded in behind, which is kind of cool. I can go into the classic mode, which has all the driver assistance systems displayed more prominently, including all the vehicles around you. You can get a little graphical display of other road users. And the third one is the off-road mode again. That brings up that central off-road screen, but also then doubles it with a matched driver's instrument cluster as well. Now, you're probably getting the impression about this point that there is a lot to do in this touch screen. There's so many options. And it is a little bit overwhelming until you get used to it. But one thing that makes life a lot easier is it has, as many other cars do, a voice-activated assistant. So you can just ask GWM to help you out with just quite a lot of different voice-activated features. But there's one thing I particularly like about that. Now, normally you'd say something like, "Hey GWM" or something like that, but I can actually customize the word that wakes it up. And I have. So let's give it a go. Privacy concerns. Open the driver's window. That worked way better than I was expecting. I mean, maybe you're not as paranoid as I am about a car listening to you all the time, but you can get it to say whatever you like. This is where you really see how much space there is in this car. While the front seats were a little bit cozy, the second row is absolutely massive everywhere. First of all, loads of toe room. Knee room for a lanky guy like me is awesome. Pretty decent under thigh support from these seats. I've got one of my favorite features, a central armrest with cup holders, which is great. So much headroom, and even more because I've got the panoramic roof in here, which is closed at the moment, but lovely light cabin with that open. And also a great view out from the side as well, with a low shoulder line on the doors. And if you don't want people prying in, then I have a privacy blind as well, but good for keeping the sun off the kids in the back seat. So space is very well represented in the second row of the Tank 500, but something else that enhances that comfort is the adjustability of the seats. So I've got quite a heavily adjustable backrest all the way back to really quite seriously reclined, probably more than I would care for, but nice to know you can. But also the seat base rolls forward and back independently of the other seat. So you can adjust how much knee room you want, or making room for rear passengers as much as you like. So that helps enormously. I've also got my central armrest, another good feature. The view out is excellent, a nice low shoulder point on the windows. And also I'm feeling like I'm sat sort of a good height relative to the front of the car, so I've got a good view forwards. Materials continue the good quality that I found at the front, but I have noticed that it is very much part leather. Only this little quilted section in the middle of the seat is real leather, and all the other bits seem to be synthetic, less real. And also on notable mention you get your own climate control panel back here for its own zone, so you can adjust fan speed, temperature, and also, an interesting one, I've got ventilated seats back here, but no heated seats. So, interesting one, perhaps in Darwin, where you want that, but not so much in Melbourne when you've got a cold winter's day like today, when heaters would probably be more valuable. A little bit of storage underneath with USB A and C in there, plus 12-volt power, another nice feature. I've got vents in the ceiling, my own individual illumination back here, more speakers for that Infinity sound system. It's very well appointed, comfort and space is excellent in the second row. But forget not, this is a 7-seater and there's a whole nother row of seats behind to talk about.
And here's where those pop-out steps really come into their own.
Now, I've spent my fair share of time in the third row of 7-seaters in similar circumstances, and I can say this one is definitely not the most spacious, but like so many, it serves a purpose when you're in a bit of a pinch. So you can see I've got plenty of knee room at the moment, but that's because those second row of seating is rolled as far forward as it possibly goes, which means there's essentially no legroom in the second row at the moment. So if you had to get someone back here, you absolutely could. For 5 children, it's a much more feasible proposition, but for adults, perhaps not so. You've got the bare minimum of headroom. I'm not actually touching the ceiling, but pretty much. There's no USB charging back here. There's its own lights and a vent, which is quite important. So it's a little bit claustrophobic. Not the biggest I've ever experienced, but also not the worst either. Access to the Tank 500's boot is via this unconventional barn door style tailgate. It is not power operated, but it does have an electric popping handle, and it makes access really, really nice. There's nothing for me to hit my head on as a taller operator, but when you get there, it's actually quite a small boot. That space is only less than 100 litres, but that's because this is a 7-seater. And if I fold that third row of seats with this very handy electric folding feature, it opens up to a far bigger boot. You'll notice it's actually not completely flat folding, which makes it a little bit compromised in the kind of things you can do with it. And also the floor is fairly high because there's hybrid things underneath that boot floor as well. One thing I do like is there's another one of those switches at the second row, so you can fold the rear seats into place when you're about to use the 7-seat capacity. Beyond that, there's some nice features, like we've got stowage for the luggage blind there, so you can hide things, and the warning triangle. It's quite well thought out. There's places to put bags, there's places to tie things down. It's actually a very versatile boot, if not the biggest in its class. But one thing I really like about it is because you've got an unconventional tailgate, on the back of it you can have a real spare wheel. Big points for any car that's claiming to be an off-roader. The Tank 500 certainly packs a lot in, and it's already stacking up to look like a pretty good solid value equation. But its hybrid powertrain seems a little bit out of character, and the way that it drives is similarly unusual. Before I go anywhere in the Tank 500, I want to just mention its drive characteristics at low speed and not moving at all, because there's a couple of little quirks that get under my skin. First of all, this electronic gear selector is not connected to the gearbox in any way at all other than electrically. And it's sometimes just blatantly ignores you when you're trying to maneuver the car around. So I'm going to go from reverse into drive. This time it's working, and then I'm going to go reverse into drive, and it goes to neutral because it thinks I wasn't pressing the brake down hard enough, which I was because I'd stopped moving. And then sometimes it just seems to have a life of its own and a mind of its own, and it just completely ignores me. Now that normally wouldn't be a problem unless it was combined with this hybrid system, because I don't really like the way it's calibrated to work at low speed. You have to press the accelerator quite a long way for it to give any kind of meaningful movement at all. And if you're not convinced whether it's gone into gear or not, you don't know if it's just a strange pedal calibration or whether it's just ignoring my input in the gear selector again. So it can be really frustrating when you're trying to change directions, maneuver or park. And a couple of times I've been maneuvering in front of other traffic or turning out of a junction, and the car hasn't gone into gear, or it's just taking a really long time, and I'm sitting there panicking because everyone's watching me. And it sounds like a small thing, but it's not. It's getting on my nerves. Also, when we're at very low speed, you'll notice the complete absence of any sound at all. Yes, it's an electric vehicle at low speed, Dan, I hear you saying, but vehicles, I understand, are supposed to emit some kind of sound when they're below 20 or 30 kilometers an hour, if they're in completely electric mode, and this one doesn't. So I don't know how GWM gets away with that, because I thought that was the law. Anyway, the other thing that I have a little bit of a problem with is the maneuvering camera, which is very good, 360 degree, you've got the clear chassis, you can see everything all around the car, but it gives a bit of an unrealistic perspective of how close everything is. That space behind the car is just filled by a blurred square at the moment. I don't know if that means that's the space I can go into, or if it's actually a danger zone. And then sometimes it'll bring up a measurement to show me how many centimeters away I am, and others it just doesn't. So it's that inconsistency again that gets under my skin. If it would do the same thing every time, I could get used to it and live with it, but it doesn't. Anyway, it's not the only thing that requires recalibration in this car. When I take the GWM Tank 500 out on the road, I kind of have to recalibrate my expectations as to what I can expect from a 7-seat large SUV. At the core of it, this car feels like a really honest, mechanical, kind of old school in a way, large SUV.
it's got that feel and the stance and the stature of a big 7-seater on the road. In all the right ways, it feels confidence inspiring and confident. And that's particularly so when you come to some corners. Tip it in, decent feel from the steering, has a bit of roll as you'd expect. There's probably a little bit of squash from those sidewalls on the tyres, but it's just driving exactly as I expect a big off-road capable SUV to negotiate corners like this. But it's when it comes to the engine and that drivetrain that things start to get a little paradoxical, because the handover from hybrid to petrol power, or sharing the responsibility, is a little bit difficult to get used to. Sometimes it feels like it's trying to err on the side of electrical power, and other times it's trying to push the engine, and it just, once again, I keep coming back to that word, consistency. You don't know what it's going to do from one occasion to the next. Now, GWM says that this drivetrain has 255 kilowatts and just under 650 newton meters. That's a full throttle acceleration, and I'm not sure it feels like that. And I think I know what the problem is. The torque figure is exactly the engine torque figure added to the torque figure of the electric motor by itself. But if you know anything about drivetrains in hybridized vehicles, you can't just add those two figures together. That's not how it works. Nor is it the same for power, because the power of the electric motor peaks at a very different time to the power of the petrol engine, and the same for torque. So it's not a matter of just adding two sums together, it's much more complex than that. And that's why I think this car doesn't make about 650 newton meters, or at least all at the same time. I think they peak at different times, and it feels a degree less powerful and torquey than that. And then we come to the other claimed figure, fuel efficiency. GWM says this thing is capable of 8.5 litres per 100 kilometres. And I'm not coming even close to that. The best I've done is into the 11s, and right now it's doing 12.2. I cannot conceivably think of a way to get anywhere near the claim of 8.5. The other thing to mention is the level of driver assistance, driver monitoring technology this car has in it. It's a lot. That little camera watching me all the time, my inputs through the steering being monitored, and also sensors and cameras all around the vehicle. So it has the capability of monitoring a lot, but I feel like it's just a bit too eager most of the time. When you're out on roads like this, where you can just have a bit of fun and blast along by yourself, no other road users, in one lane, it's really not too much of a problem for the Tank 500 to fathom. But once you throw in a few variables like more traffic and some road obstacles, multiple lanes, it starts to just get a little bit flustered and starts throwing up loads of warnings at you. On a couple of occasions I've been driving along in a straight line, just cruising and not having to put in too many steering inputs, and it thinks that I don't have my hands on the wheel. It'll give me a warning. And other times I'll stare down at the infotainment system for literally a couple of seconds to play with one of the systems, and it'll give me a warning way earlier than is actually necessary. It's like GWM is so proud of all its driver monitoring and safety systems, it wants you to know about it every time you're in the car, every second minute. Now, as I've found going through some of those menus, most of it is switchable. You can actually go in and turn a lot of it off, and most importantly, unlike many other manufacturers, it doesn't default back on when you switch the engine off and back on again. But to me it seems like a bit of a shame. I mean, the technology is there for a reason. Wouldn't it just be better to refine it and develop it a bit better so that it works and you don't have to switch it off? So when I say I need to recalibrate my expectations when I get in this car, what I mean is initially offers what I was expecting. A big 7-seat SUV with the manners on the road and the stature that I was expecting. But then, above all that, there's this layer of technology and advancement that is not really that common in a vehicle of this segment. And then you pair it to that really unorthodox and quite unusual powertrain, and you've really got many cars in one, and I'm not sure they're particularly cohesive and they all work together in exactly the right way, but it's nearly there. With a little bit of refinement, a little bit of focus and concentration on the finer details, this could be so much better. But it's not far off.
There is so much to like about the Tank 500, from its spacious cabin to the generous equipment level, but there is still room for improvement, including fuel efficiency and power delivery, both of which could be solved with one mechanical change.
Until the Tank 500 gets a diesel engine, I'm not sure it's ever going to realise its full potential. And that's a shame, because it does so much very well. It's got heaps of space, some really good luxury features, and it appears to have some bona fide 4x4 capability. It's just the finer details that seem to let it down. But if you can look past some of those irksome qualities, or perhaps just turn them off, and it gets a diesel engine, the Tank 500 could really be the complete package. That is the GWM Tank 500. It is available at the moment only as a 2-litre hybrid. Is that enough to put you off, or does its huge amount of technology and cool features justify this for your next 4x4 7-seat SUV? Let us know in the comments below, and thanks for watching Car Sales.